Assalamu alaikum. When the word Kashmir pops up in our mind, the Indian held Kashmir or the Indian occupied Kashmir, the first word which pops up in my mind is about the Indian atrocities, the Indian violations of human rights. You talk about killing women, raping them, killing innocent children. You talk about elderly, the way they are treated out there. Absolute lack of medical facilities, scarcity of food, no clean drinking water, and on top, 750,000 Indian paramilitary forces which are present there to look after the law and order situation. But having said that, it's an indigenous, homegrown movement which has been unfortunately, and they have portrayed it in such a fashion as if it's a terrorist movement. I want to remind you here one thing, that when we talk about the right of self-determination, that is the right given by the United Nations to every single human being, no matter where he lives on this part of the world. But unfortunately, when you look at the Indian held or the Indian occupied Kashmir, things are very different. Draconian laws have been imposed. We hear that curfew is there on and off. People are being practically dragged out of the hospitals. Use of pellet guns, unfortunately, has become a new phenomena. That's a trigger-happy army with a license to kill. So far, if you look at the history, the detail, more than 120,000 people so far have been killed. Thousands have been missing. You talk about massive graves, I think that is the only place where you'll find them. You talk about other sort of atrocities, that's an ongoing phenomena once again. Now, how to market that, how to tell people what's going out there, how to support this cause. Pakistan has done a lot. But now, something very interesting is happening. When you talk about the Organization of Islamic Conference, the OIC countries, the Independent Permanent Human Rights Commission of OIC is visiting Pakistan. And interestingly, as you all know, that when it comes to the military observers or such commissions, the Indians do not allow even the journalists or even the tourists in that part which is controlled and held and occupied by the Indians. But when we talk about the Pakistani area, the Azad Kashmir, they went there, they witnessed a lot of, I would say, very significant areas, and they also met the people, and the kind of information which they gathered, definitely they'll be sharing us their own experience. I have my co-host with me, Sana Maqbool. Sana, now, first of all, your quick take on the overall situation, because we've been doing a lot of shows in Kashmir.
Absolutely.
So, when you look at this, these sort of visuals, I mean, what is happening in the Indian occupied Kashmir? What is your take? How do you look at it?
You know, Faisal, like you've highlighted all of the main issues in Kashmir that the Kashmiri people are facing these days, and especially the human rights violations that are being carried out by the Indian occupation forces in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. It's very, very saddening, and what's the worst part about it is the fact that it is an internationally recognized dispute. It is something which the entire international community knows about. The violations are there, they're very blatant, they're in front of you. And yet we know that for decades this issue is just outstanding. It's not resolved and nothing's been happening.
It's been over 70 years.
Absolutely. For the plight of the Kashmiris there who's suffering every single day.
And the best part is now there's this new wave. The youth, they got involved in this struggle for freedom.
Right.
And we hope and we pray. And Pakistan has always given them political support. We have given them the emotional support. We have always been there. We stood by them in thick and thin. And let's hope where it leads. But let me hand it over to you now to introduce the panelists. Let's start off.
Absolutely. So we do have the OIC's Independent Permanent Human Rights Commission's delegation with us, and we will be talking to them about their visit in Azad Jammu and Kashmir and what their take is on the Kashmiri issue and the violations that they've seen, the people that they've spoken to, the refugees that they've met in those areas. So to welcome today in our studios, we have the chairperson of this commission, Medias Kagwa, who is from Uganda. He's here with us. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir. And next to the chairperson, we have the vice chairperson, Dr. Rehana Binti Abdullah. She is from Malaysia. Thank you very much for joining us. And we have the second vice chairperson with us also, who is Dr. Rashid bin Hamad Al-Balushi. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, then with him we have Dr. Umar Abu Abba, who is from Cameroon. Thank you for joining us today. And Faisal, on our left, please introduce.
We have with us Professor Dr. Saleh Al-Khattan. He's from Saudi Arabia, is also a member of Majlis al-Shura. So thank you very much for being a part of our show. We have with us another guest from Turkey, Dr. Ergin Ergul. He's a senior judge, sir. Thank you very much. And we also have with us former Ambassador Abdul Wahab, who's also a commissioner, and he comes from Pakistan. So thank you very much, all three gentlemen, for being a part of our program and at least to raise this very important issue regarding Kashmir.
Right. Now, starting off with the chairperson, of course, of this commission, you're here, and we're very, very grateful for you, and we're honored that you visited Pakistan to firsthand witness and see and speak to people who are facing these atrocities every single day. And you visited Jammu and Kashmir, you've spoken to the families there, the refugees there. I would just like you to highlight how blatant these violations are and what you witnessed on ground yourself, the first-hand information that you've gotten from the people who are facing this.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think the first picture you get is of people who are oppressed, people who feel justice has not been on their part, because as we know, this is, I think, the oldest standing issue with the UN Security Council. It's possible over 70 years. Resolution taken to have a plebiscite for self-determination. It has not been done. And it leaves the people, to say the least, without any redress, so to say.
Right.
So when you see these people, they almost at the verge of losing hope, because somebody waiting for 70 years, if you are not lucky, you may not live those years. So if somebody is 70 today, what hope do they have to see their country or to see their right being exercised? That is to determine which way they want to go as per the resolution.
Yeah, ma'am, moving on to you. Since you've been there, and when we talk about human rights violation, obviously it's not carried out only on the men or the male gender, but women are suffering as well. Women and children in particular. Earlier, the phenomenon was very different, that they would go after men, but now they're not leaving anybody. Can you imagine these pellet guns are being used against young children as old as 4 years? Women are being raped on a regular basis, they're being picked up, their houses are torched. And every single thing which you can dream of in terms of torture, that does exist in Kashmir. Your take, what have you witnessed?
When we talk about war, conflict, tensions and everything, even the history shows that normally women and children will be the victim. And sadly to say that not just killing, but using sexual abuse, rape as a tactic, or we can say that as a tool of oppression. And this is very bad, because their lives, especially the young children, the young girls, their lives being crippled physically, emotionally, and as well as socially, economically, and this is very bad. And this is what happened when we've been briefed, and also reports say that quite numbers of, there's a statistic shows that, women and children are being victimized, or there's a violations against them. And I can see that if it is about, the issue of tensions and everything, the United Nations actually, they have a very landmark UN Resolution 1325, the protections of women and children, but it is in the armed conflict. So the issue here is that whether the IOK issue is falls under the armed conflict. In other words, that we have the international law or resolutions that need to protect women and children, but yet it happens everywhere. Yeah. So this is a very interesting and significant issues that we should raise. You know, if it is about politics, it's about politics. If it's about criminal, a crime, it's about crime. But yet, this group, women and children, is vulnerable, and yet during the war, they are targeted one.
Right. Moving on to Dr. Rashid now, we know that you're also a practicing lawyer in your own country also, and we know of the fact that there are many draconian laws in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir which allows the Indian military and occupation forces to get away with whatever they want without facing any prosecution or trial. So what do you think is there's the lack of such laws which need to protect the civilians of Kashmir need to be in place? What do you think needs to be done in this regard for them to be protected, and how big a deprivation this is for them?
Thank you very much for highlighting on this point. Actually, it is a very crucial point. Let me go back, since this kind of laws, actually, it is in India since long time. But regarding Kashmir, they implemented in 1990 especially, and there is one phrase called Afisba laws. All this one, everybody knows that from the legal side, that what this kind of laws, this is very bad laws. This is, you know, as you mentioned, they are open the hand for armies and police to do what they would like to do with that, and they give them like lessons of killings. We can say that one. Unfortunately, after 1990 in Indian occupied Kashmir, this law is implemented, and there is very great, what's called, there is dramatically happened for the killing of people, especially from those whose, you know, actually witnesses, we can say, parties, child and women. The last development or happened in this case, it is using pellet guns, which we are also seeing from the report, and there is also report coming from the NGOs outside of Islamic country even. So that leads to, you know, very, very bad results as landed of especially children. Sometimes to kill person better than leave him like that, without hope, without future. So I think always we say, the documented, as the lawyers, we are always advised, documented this action, and we are believed there is one day it will come where the person or the organization or authority even who commit such crime like this, they will get a punishment. This is according to the international criminal law. This is considered as genocide crime, no doubt about it. But we need to be documented, and we need to be use some pressure for the other side to at least stop this bad action against Indian occupied Kashmir.
Dr. Omar Abu Awam, since you come from an African state, and whenever we talk about Africa, countries like Congo, countries like Sudan, countries for that matter like Nigeria, I mean, you talk about atrocities, you talk about rebels out there, burning villages, chopping off the hands, chopping off the feet. I mean, you think of that kind of, I mean, I would say torture, and that does exist there. But when you compare Kashmir with that, I'll just give you a few figures. 120,000 people, that's a huge number, so far been killed. Thousands, they've been missing. You talk about rape victims, you talk about blinding people, that's a recent phenomena. You talk about mass graves out there. Just imagine missing persons. People who go missing and do not even know what the fate of that person is. So I would rate Kashmir even a step higher, because out there, the amount which I'm talking about, that's 750,000 troops out there, and they can do anything on their own will. And the world, unfortunately, doesn't know about that. Your take, sir, how do you see it?
I don't know if the coverage is not enough. I don't know if the rest of the world doesn't have enough concern to this kind of situation. But when you come from Africa, you think that this kind of atrocities are just committed in this part of the country. But you realize that the same thing is happening here also. So the first feeling I have is that no matter where you are, no matter where you live, a human being is a human being. And you have to be protected, your life, your wealth, your family, your dignity, everything related to your, I would say, humanity has to be protected. And we are a little bit surprised that the rest of the world has just done the minimum, I would say, even not the minimum, to deal with the Kashmiri issue. I would say, fortunately, the Council of Foreign Ministers, OIC, Council of Foreign Ministers, through 4 resolutions, Resolution 40, 41, 42, and 43, all on political affairs, mandated IPHRC to try to have a sort of standing mechanism to monitor the issue and to come out with objective and thorough reports to say exactly what's happening and to try to launch a sort of, I would say, a sensitization campaign through the other world within the report, and why not through programs like this one to try to make every single assessment which is necessary to highlight all these situations. We hope that at the end of the day, I shall say earlier, something would be done for the benefits of the Kashmiri people.
Right, moving on to you, Dr. Saleh. You are a member of the Majlis Shura as well, and we know that the situation in Kashmir saw a surge in violence since Burhan Wani's martyrdom in last July. And we know that we've seen Indian atrocities to a new height. We know that the funerals over there are also not protected. The people, the civilians of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir cannot even perform the mortuary rituals for their loved ones. And especially now, since we know that there were very, very harsh winters that they had to face, there was a lack of medical supplies, there was a lack of basic food facilities to them. It is a horrible, horrible situation. But yet we see that nothing's been done about it. The Indian atrocities continue there as they have continued in the past as well. There is no concept of a political dialogue since the leadership is under house arrest or they've been detained. So all possibilities have been suspended. How do you see the situation and the fact that there's been a blind eye cast to it?
You're right, it's absolutely right what you said. And from the stories we heard from, the refugees we have met, either the women or elderly, or seeing it with the eyes of the kids who are third generations refugee, it seems that the violations are comprehensive. I mean, violations of the basic rights, right of life, right of security, of right of even religious right and education, everything. So it is violent. I mean, gross violations of human rights, and no one is saved from those violations. Unfortunately, the international community is only expressing a concern. It's not even condemning those violations, even though everybody is seeing it. And I have read reports, besides the stories that we all heard from the refugees. This is unacceptable. The situation there is really unacceptable, and even though no NGO, no human rights organization have been allowed to go and see, we can, now we cannot hide anything. The social media, everything, it's everywhere. So unfortunately, there's a lot of politics involved here. And the weight of a country like India in the international relation, that is, I think, the international community is taking that into consideration when it comes to, taking a position, a stand, or a strong stand on the violations of human rights there. But this has to change. And I think the first step is for India to allow commissions and organizations like us, to go and see for ourselves. If there is nothing to hide, why not allow, why not allow us to see for? If the situation is not like what the whole community, international community, is seeing, so let them go and see for themselves, and they can report what you wanted to report. But if blocking them and from seeing the reality, and you cannot say otherwise, except that this is a gross violation, that it has to be stopped, and the international community has to do something. I mean, just expressing concern, that is not enough.
That's a very, very
धूल, मिट्टी और जरासीम आपकी सर की जिल्द में जमकर डैंड्रफ का बायस बन सकते हैं। क्लियर मैन न्यूट्रियल ऑयल कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ जिल्द की तह तक सफाई करे और दे अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन। क्लियर मैन, अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन।
लो, ये कहाँ गया? विकी?
दादी, ये लो आपके 10 रुपए।
कोई बात नहीं, 10 रुपए के सर्फ एक्सेल से ये सारे दाग साफ हो जाएंगे। हाफ टाइम में दाग निकलेंगे, वो भी सिर्फ 10 रुपए में। सर्फ एक्सेल।
धूल, मिट्टी और जरासीम आपकी सर की जिल्द में जमकर डैंड्रफ का बायस बन सकते हैं। क्लियर मैन न्यूट्रियल ऑयल कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ जिल्द की तह तक सफाई करे और दे अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन। क्लियर मैन, अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन।
लो, ये कहाँ गया? विकी?
दादी, ये लो आपके 10 रुपए।
कोई बात नहीं, 10 रुपए के सर्फ एक्सेल से ये सारे दाग साफ हो जाएंगे। हाफ टाइम में दाग निकलेंगे, वो भी सिर्फ 10 रुपए में। सर्फ एक्सेल।
धूल, मिट्टी और जरासीम आपकी सर की जिल्द में जमकर डैंड्रफ का बायस बन सकते हैं। क्लियर मैन न्यूट्रियल ऑयल कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ जिल्द की तह तक सफाई करे और दे अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन। क्लियर मैन, अनबीटेबल डैंड्रफ प्रोटेक्शन।
Welcome back after the break. Now, Ambassador Abdul Wahab, there was this question which was brewing in my mind. That was about the demographic changes the Indians are making in the IOK. And now that is of prime concern for a lot of people in Pakistan, because this is something on a similar pattern what Israel is doing in the Palestinian state. Now, over there, you'll see that a lot of people from all over India are being settled there. They've taken the possession of their lands. People are practically being thrown out of their houses, and their land has been grabbed. And I mean, that is another way of violation. Secondly, at the same time, when you talk about this 5th generation and this indigenous movement that's been there for the last 70 years, and it is going to continue, there's a new, fresh blood involved. And that is another reason they're targeting the youth in particular. So your two comments from you. So A, the genocide of the youth in the Indian-occupied, Indian-held Kashmir, and the second about the demographic changes they are making on purpose, sir.
Yeah, the repression of the youth is going to be very, very counterproductive. It's actually radicalizing the youth. They are peaceful young people, they are educated people, they have their dreams, they have their own plans for future, peaceful and all that. But by subjecting them to the brutalities, they are actually creating problems for the entire region. That I suppose we will be, in our own report, we will be condemning it, and also there are reports of other international human rights organizations who have highlighted that and have condemned that. On our part, in the Commission, we will continue our efforts to put pressure on India as much as possible to stop that.
Of course, you've been a human rights activist in your own country as well, and you focused on the rights of children and women. And we know that you've spoken to a lot of families who have been divided since long in Azad Jammu and Kashmir in your visit, and you've spoken to the problems that they face and the sufferings that they've gone through with their loved ones being across the river. And of course, they've shared a lot of stories with you regarding the pain and suffering that they have had to face for such a long time. Would you like to share those with us, please?
Yes, I think we managed to talk to 2 or 3 of the refugees from the refugees, and they share their problems, their experience actually, why they have to flee to Pakistan, or to Azad Jammu Kashmir, and I think through that experience, and now they also share that they have, I think I would like to say an acknowledgement to the government of Islamic Republic Pakistan for providing a lot of facilities to these kind of women, because through the sharing of their experiences, they say that now they have their sons or their children growing up, one being an engineer, another one being an a doctor. Right. So these are the things, they need to to live. What happens in the past does not stop them, to continue their lives. So this is the thing that we know that there's a violations of human rights against the women and children in IOK.
Last year or so, post Burhan Wani's martyrdom, 20,000 people are missing.
Yes.
15,000 are injured.
Yes.
Over 120 have been killed. Thousands have been blinded. I mean, but the unfortunate part is that the whole world is quiet about it. Let me put a question here for you, Professor Dr. Saleh. Now, Saudi Arabia is a very rich country, very influential country in the region. And now when we talk about Pakistan, obviously the kind of ties which we enjoy with Saudi Arabia, they're tremendous. I mean, there's no example. But when we look at these Muslim Kashmiri brothers being brutally murdered, tortured out there in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and I think they're using every single means of torture. They're experimenting on them. This is what we have heard. I've gone through certain videos, sir, which we can't even show on television, and I can't even look at them, the way they were killing those poor people. Now when you look at the kind of state the Indians are, I mean, I see 2 things here, so I really want you to throw light on that. One is the Indian extremist mindset of Hindutva, the government of BJP, which is in partnership with PDP in Kashmir, have formulated a very puppet regime. But having said that, nothing has been done so far for the people of Kashmir. Rather, they are being tortured almost on a daily basis. Kids can't go to school. There's lack of medical facilities. Injured people have been dragged out of the hospitals and they've been put into jails. I mean, you don't find these examples anywhere else, sir. What exactly do you think needs to be done now?
You mentioned in your question something about, something is worrying us now, which is the rise of hate speech. That is by some Indian officials the last 2 years, directly, specifically to the Kashmiris, but all over.
In particular to Muslims.
In particular to Muslims. I mean, they are expressing statements that are, anti-Muslims, that are
like banning beef in certain states,
of course. So I think that is another concern that we have to be to look into, because within the commission we have working groups, and I happen to be the coordinator of the working group on Islamophobia.
Okay.
So I think this is an important issue, this Islamophobic discourse that is on the rise, and then we have to document this, and this cannot just go away. We have to be, they have to be held accountable. Those who utter such anti-Islam and anti-Muslim statements.
Dr. Rashid, I'd just like you to give your comments on this and talk about how important it is for India to change its stance and behavior towards this issue and really come to the dialogue table. There has been enough time given to this already.
Actually, from my side, I think that I believe very well for the peace way. always what's called the army forces or the using power is not reach us to the result. We are talking about case old now 70 years. So day by day or generation by generation, the things becoming more. Actually, land is part of the body of the human. Even you will let him stay in the palace, still he need to go back to his land.
Right.
I just would like to add something which really make me very upset and very sad, which why, you know, this is the first time when we are visiting Azad Kashmir, know about it. It is we are known, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Almighty is honored the human rights. In Quran, He didn't mention Muslim or non-Muslim. He is for all human rights. When we are find more than 600 bodies on the river, killing by Indian occupation force and throw them on the river. What you can say for this? Sorry.
Dr. Omar, talking about the leadership, I mean, what we are seeing on the ground, what is happening with the people, with the children in general, I mean, stone versus tanks. There is no comparison. And their leadership is not even allowed to talk. There's curfew, I mean, mostly in the valley, when you talk about Srinagar and the Muslim majority areas. The point is that nobody talks about it in the international media. You switch on the television, you will definitely find that 3 people got killed in UK for that matter. But nobody talks about what is happening in Mosul or what is happening in Aleppo or how many people drowned in the Mediterranean or how many people got killed in Kashmir. Do you think that this is the time when Muslim Ummah needs to be united? And let's get together. And we have a platform like OIC to make it more vigilant, you know, to take up the issues.
Very shortly, I would say that it's not only the Muslim Ummah which is to be united. I think the awareness should be spread all over the world. That's my view. And my hope is that what we are trying to do now is just a first step towards the awareness in the rest of the world. As Ambassador Abdul Wahab said, we will submit a report to the Council of Foreign Ministers. And we hope that from this report, concrete actions by OIC countries, by the rest of the world, because we hope that the report will be forwarded to other fora, like the United Nations, the Human Rights Council, and so on. And this should lead to a global awareness on this issue. This is our hope, and this is why we are here. We are trying to do this.
Mr. Abdul Wahab, of course, you've been a former chairperson of this commission also, and you know this has been the standing agenda of the commission. There's human rights violations that have been going on in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. How significant do you think this step and this visit is for the plight of the Kashmiris?
Well, it actually is very, very important. And as I said, the commission is new. What we have done is this is after the Palestine visit where some of our commissioners went to Palestine. This is the second visit. This also shows the importance that this commission gives to the issue of Kashmir. And also, in the case of Palestine, we have submitted a very brief report at this point of time to the Council of Foreign Ministers, but we are going to follow up on that. Here, thanks to the Government of Pakistan, the facilities and the access that was given to the Commission's delegation whenever and wherever we wanted to go and meet people and talk to, we have much more detailed information. And as I said earlier, even if India did not allow us or has not yet allowed us to visit that part, the Indian-occupied Kashmir, for a fact-finding mission, even judging from here, by talking to the refugees, by talking to the victims, we have a very fair idea as to what is going on that side. we certainly would be highlighting that, and our report to the Council of Foreign Ministers would hopefully be followed up by the Council of Foreign Ministers of the OIC, forwarding it to the United Nations Secretary General, to the Human Rights Commissioners in Geneva, and to all concerned bodies. The question of documentation, yes, I think the process already has started. There actually is an NGO inside the Indian occupied Kashmir which has started that documentation that is available, and it's a very recent publication. That would also be helpful in our report, and we would also add to that. So the point of documentation is really in today's world, and monitoring human rights situation is important, and luckily it has started, and we'll build on that. So inshallah, it's a good beginning for us, for the Human Rights Commission, to Human Rights Commission of the OIC to visit this part and to keep pursuing the issue of the massive human rights violations of the Kashmiri people and the Indian occupied Kashmir. We are hopeful, inshallah, that there would be some progress further on that. Thank you.
Dr. Ergin, now another last comment, I think, which I would like to point out here. When you talk about whatever is going on in Kashmir, we do understand. We do understand that it's been there for the last 70 years. It can't be resolved overnight. This is an outstanding issue. It's in the United Nations. It has been recognized by them as a dispute. And both countries are nuclear. That's why we call Kashmir a nuclear flashpoint. But it needs to be diffused. But unfortunately, the tensions between the two countries, that's increasing. And Kashmiris on either part of the border are suffering, whether they're in Azad Kashmir or in the Indian occupied Kashmir. 2 points here, sir. Whatever is happening out there, because earlier, as I mentioned, we hardly know even 10% of what is happening there, because they have, either they impose curfew, or there's no communication network as such. They won't have the access to internet, so there's another way to sort of stop the flow of the information on this side or the other part of the world. Now, talking about Turkey, look at TRT, the way Turkish television has evolved over a period of time. The whole world knows, and we watch, and we get to know what the narrative of Turkey is about various issues in the region and otherwise. Similarly, when we talk about the Indians, I'll just give you one example here. A couple of the Indian members of the parliament visited Kashmir, and the document which they submitted was pretty interesting. It said that we do not want a part of the land. We want to win the heart of the people living there, because it's the people eventually at the end of the day. Now, they have been so far totally failed in doing so. Yes, they do occupy that particular piece of land. That's in their control. They have a certain number of military forces, looking after the affairs. But at the same time, as their own government people from BJP, they are admitting, their own journalists are writing reports, and all those who are writing are harassed by the intelligence agencies in India. How do you see that aspect, sir?
Thank you. You are right. It is necessary a cooperation between Muslim countries, media, institutions for better informing public opinion in our countries. Turkish media organs are very interested in such issues concerning all Muslims and all humanity. It is clear that Kashmir people defend their legal rights, as you said, recognized by United Nations, by international law. Then India must to understand that punishment politics against innocent people.
It's not a workable solution.
Yes, it is. Then I believe that is all grave violations against innocent Kashmiri people will not undermine the will of the people of Kashmir, because their cause is just and right. And all we know from from past experience, violence produce only violence.
Right. Absolutely, of course, it's a very important point raised by you, the fact that the aggressive policies by India and, of course, the atrocities that are being carried out by the Indian occupation forces will result in nothing at the end of the day. It is not the solution for the Kashmir dispute. And
Sir, war itself is the problem. War can't be a solution.
Absolutely
at the end
not.
of the day, it's all about sitting together for a meaningful dialogue.
Right.
I'm emphasizing on meaningful,
Right.
because dialogue process has been going on for so long. I mean, I was just looking at this last 123rd session of talks regarding the water issue between
Absolutely.
Pakistan and India.
Yes.
Nothing has come
And
out
sir,
yet.
it needs to be urgent also, since there are human rights violations.
How
There are
many more
people
lives do we
living,
need to lose?
exactly, when we cannot afford anymore.
As earlier, our friend from Oman, I mean, I could feel the pain in his heart. That's why he cried, because imagine hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those loved ones being brutally killed and murdered and thrown into the.
It is unimaginable.
And it's a very regular phenomenon. In Azad Kashmir, those bodies would flow with the river, and people would get them here and get them buried here in Pakistan.
Absolutely. The torture that the people of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir are going through is just unimaginable.
It's just beyond our imagination,
And
honestly.
it is unacceptable.
Absolutely. But anyway, let's say thank you to our panelists. Sir. Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming.
A pleasure indeed to meet you. And sir, thank you very much for being a part of the show once again. And so I think time to say goodbye.
Right.
And that's all we have for this hour. It's goodbye from me and Sana Makbool. We'll see you again. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.